All right, guys. Should we do this? Let's go. Welcome to the Pause, Rewind, Play podcast. We hope you enjoy the show. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. Once again, this is the Pause, Rewind, Play podcast, and my name is Casey. I'm here with Vince Bradley. How's it going, Vince?
Good. Happy to be here. I'm excited to talk about Baby Driver.
Ooh.
Super pumped. Loved this movie.
This has been a week where I have been more than excited to listen to this because of not only the great sights, but also the great beauty of it. Sorry, Josh, I didn't forget about you. I'm just over here talking about my excitement for the movie. How you doing tonight?
It's all good. We're all in the same boat here. I know that every single one of us has been super pumped the whole week to talk about Baby Driver, been tweeting about it.
I posted a thing on Instagram like halfway through the week last week. It was just like, I just want to get to next Monday so I can talk about Baby Driver.
Yeah, so we're all in the same boat there. We're ready to do this.
Well, good. I've been pretty excited about this one. Baby Driver was a film that I really wanted to see because, to me, it kind of looked and don't laugh at this when I say it, right? So I'm a fan of the Fast and the Furious franchise and like Gone in 60 Seconds. Anything like the Transporter, anything with a car and like just a dude who like looks like a baller the whole time in the driver's seat, right? And so when I first saw this, I was like, the background is pink, you know, the poster is like advertising it like this. So I was super stoked. And so I'm like way excited. A little bit kind of to kick us off so folks know about Baby Driver is Baby Driver came out in 2017. Kind of like for me, one of the biggest highlights after I first saw like getting the marketing for it and what kind of excited me is there were vibrant colors. The music of their marketing was on point. Mm-hmm. And then later on, once I watched the film, I noticed how the music and the cinematography kind of sync up. And then, yeah, that made me excited. So after I saw it for the first time, my wife even like, she hates these type of movies. She was like, oh yeah, guns, cars, and music, right? And in this one, you know, you had the full thing. And she's like, this wasn't actually as bad as I thought it was going to be. So I was pretty psyched about it.
I had a friend, because for some reason, I mean, I must have saw the trailer or something, but for some reason it didn't really make much of an impression on me at the time. But I had a buddy who saw it, and after he came home, he's just like, you have to go see that movie. It's like, I haven't seen anything that does what they did with this one. So he's like, you have to go see it, check out the trailer again, watch the details of what they're doing, and sure enough, I went to it and loved it.
Well, I mean, it's sort of just like a culmination of Edgar Wright's work, right? I mean, if we look at what he's done in the past with Shaun of the Dead and Scott Pilgrim versus the World, just to name a few, it's sort of, you can pick out the details from this movie, and he does so much with it, and you can see, like, individual aspects of it, like, blown up in, like, other films, like, you know, Scott Pilgrim versus the World focuses a lot on that, you know, sort of like, you know, the comic book brought into real life. And in the same way, you know, you have in this movie the, you know, just like the immense attention to detail so much that like every single thing is brought, you know, into the present from when they're doing the movies into, you know, well, I won't go too far into it. Just say that it's pretty much a culmination of Edgar Wright's work, and not to say that he's done or anything, but it's just he's putting on a show with everything that he can do with filmmaking, and it's incredible.
It's just a good highlight of his work as a director, but also the work of the actors and the people who shoot the film, the people who chose the music and everything in full. So yeah, the kind of like we talked about really quickly, and I just want to say this right off the bat because I always am the person who yells this out, but this movie came out in 2017. If you haven't seen it, I'm sorry. Like, we're going to give you all the spoilers here. We're going to talk about this in depth. Yeah. And I'm not trying to be rude. I just am so psyched to talk about this. So just a quick, also going into it, we also need to kind of let you guys know a little bit more about the film as far as that goes and who it's starring, which would be Ansel, I always butcher his name. What's his name? Elgort?
Just Elgort.
Mm-hmm. Ansel Elgort, John Hamm, John Bernthal, Eliza Gonzalez, Lily James, Kevin Spacey, C.J. Jones, who is like the deaf stepdad or foster father, I wanted to like give a shout out to him because
Yeah.
that was really cool. Like you don't really see like an actual deaf actor, and we were wondering about that while we were watching.
Oh,
Josh and I.
he's deaf in real life then?
Yeah, he is a part of
wow.
Hollywood's deaf actor scene.
Huh.
And so I thought that was pretty cool. And then just a simple shout out to the Flea from Red Hot Chili Peppers.
And also not to miss anyone, Jamie Foxx as well, of course.
And
I completely did write him down.
Yeah, you completely skipped over him, and he's a big part of this movie.
Yo, man, be careful. I think he's going to come get you.
I just didn't like him that much in this film, so that's probably why I was like, I put him out of thought and out of mind.
Well, we'll get into that a little bit later when we get into who stands out. Since you already brought up kind of these cameos, I listened to some of the bonus features on the Blu-ray, and it was an interview with the director, and he talked about how he wanted to get more like actual musicians involved in this movie. So not only did it have Flea from Red Hot Chili Peppers, but Baby's mom is Sky Ferreira, I think her name is. She's a singer. Yeah.
Maybe.
And then the guy who plays the butcher in the Tequila song scene, he's an old musician too. He actually did the Over the Rainbow song with Kermit the Frog clear back in the day.
Connection.
Oh yeah. That's the same song,
The
right?
Rainbow Connection, yeah.
No, I got the wrong song, but you know what I'm talking about.
I'm pretty sure that's what it was, at least in a video I watched.
Yeah, you're right. Mentioned. Yeah. So he brought in, and then there's two other guys. I didn't write down their names. I should have, but they're in just a split second. It's the scene with Kevin Spacey in the restaurant where he's with those two guys. They're both musicians too, and I forgot to write their names down. But how cool is that? That like not only did he at the beginning of this movie, or before he even like started creating this movie, he chose the music that he wanted to do and decided, I want to have all like musicians be a part of this. Music's the core of this movie, and it's so cool how they mesh them together.
It's absolutely perfect. Just exactly what you said. The music is the core of this movie. I mean, and I know Casey has a quote that talks about it, and so I'll let him read that talks about how much the music completely drives the movie.
Yeah, just to dive into that quote really fast, because this is something like that I loved. Okay, so essentially, like, I guess the director at one point, and he's into an interview, and someone literally calls out to do like everything matched the music. To do that, they had to tediously be at the locations, to measure the roads out before actually driving the car, and timing everything. They choreographed everything to music instead of the other way around.
Yeah.
Which you can tell in some films that are bigger that they have cut sections out of songs or something to make it match the moment or what's going on with it, right? I didn't feel that way in this film at all. I thought the music led the film, not necessarily the acting. And I think all the actors did a great job, but the music for me was the star of the film.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly why it's so good, because when you cut pieces out of music, it sounds incomplete. But if the music's just taking a back seat so that it doesn't sound awkward, it's not a problem. Here, where it's literally meant to focus around the music, it's so perfect.
Yeah. And Edgar Wright, he said that in order to pull this off, they had to choreograph like you said, they had to choreograph every single step of the movie, every single detail, so that when they showed up on set, they weren't wasting any time or any film. I don't know, maybe they shot digital, but whatever. So they weren't wasting any money. They had to have everything like down to a T. And so they were doing like practice sessions in warehouses, or like practicing with the cars out in racetracks, so that when they showed up there on set, they could just nail it every time,
Yeah.
Get exactly what they needed. Another really cool thing was they wanted the movie to be as realistic as possible. So not only do they have like all the music set to the movie, but they also tried to get every single they tried to do it as realistic as possible. So like 95% of the movie is done in real life. Like there's no CGI. So all the car races, they even shut down an entire section of the freeway in order for them to get those like cool freeway shots, zooming in and out of cars. And they use cool things like, I can't remember what they called them, but they're rigs that they have someone actually sitting up on top of the car.
Yeah.
And they have the entire cast in the car pretending to drive or acting out the things. And everything around them is really moving, so you don't have any like CGI backgrounds or anything. And even the way that they're turning the cars and that kind of stuff, the actors are really moving in certain ways. So like Ansel Elgort, he went through stunt driving classes with the with the stunt drivers themselves, so that when he's pretending to drive, it feels casual, it feels like normal, and he's doing actions that he would actually be doing while they're driving.
I'd heard the same thing, and that's something that I was actually going to call out in a little while, is that they had people actually doing as much of their own stunts essentially on this as they could to make it seem real. And that's even like all the way through. Whoever's driving is actually driving for the most part of it. However, like some of the drifting and such is not them, but for the most part it is the actors.
Some of the like easier stuff was them.
Yeah.
Like even John Hamm went out and practiced some of the stuff too.
Yeah, I'm super glad about that. I'm a John Hamm fan, and if no one's noticed.
Yeah.
Just John Hamming it up over here. But no, Josh, kind of going into it, and I guess I want to like quote a few more of these movie facts that I've kind of skipped over really fast, because I think that they kind of make a little bit more conversation, and we can build the whole discussion essentially off of some of these like facts and thoughts about it. But one of them that really stood out to me as well is that every character in the film has a designated color for their wardrobe. Did you guys kind of notice that?
No, but now that you pointed out, Jamie Foxx was always wearing red, and I'm pretty sure I had it on in the background, the bonus feature stuff, but I'm pretty sure every once in a while the costume director would pop up and say something about what they were wearing. And she did point out that Jamie Foxx's like king shirt is all in red and that kind of stuff. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, exactly. So the production design, each character had their own color, and they were sort of, a lot of it was, representative of different things. Jamie Foxx, wearing red, and at that one point he has like that jacket that's red, and it's like the king card, because he thinks he's like the man, the boss, and stuff like that. Yeah. And so I thought they were all pretty interesting, and they all seemed to match their characters. The most interesting one for me was definitely Baby's, because he would wear black and white. And the sort of like significance of that is at the very beginning, you got the whole crew that are showing up to the bank for the very first scene, and they're all wearing black, and he's wearing a jacket that's black and white. So you already see that he's not completely entrenched in that, like undercover, like all this like illegal world. But then, because as soon as he gets home and he's taking care of his dad, he's just wearing white. He's just wearing his like white undershirt and stuff. And so he goes back and forth in that between the movie. But then as he dives deeper into the criminal world, like after he's free, right after he does his quote unquote last job, but then he gets pulled back in. He's wearing pretty much the same style of shirt, just like tank or something like that. And it just gradually gets darker throughout the film as he's pulled deeper and deeper and does more and more stuff. But then as he gets out and as he goes to prison and when he's released in the very last scene, he's again wearing white. So that was just something interesting.
Yeah, that's cool.
I thought to that point.
That's one of those things that you don't really like. There's so much to this movie that one viewing you're not going to catch all the little things. The first time around you watch it and you're like, oh, cool, the gunshots line up to the music. And the second time through you're like, oh, that's where the Monsters Inc. quote comes from. He saw it on the TV earlier. And then the third time, it's like every time you catch something new. And that's Edgar Wright it's a call out to him, he just nails that kind of stuff. Every one of his movies is kind of like that. Scott Pilgrim was the same way. Bunch of stuff you don't catch the first time through.
Every single detail in that movie is absolutely incredible, because you can almost every single moment in the entire film will tie to something else or has some sort of meaning with something else, however little, however insignificant it may seem. It's perfect. I was wondering if you guys maybe wanted to talk about one of my favorite scenes of the movie, which was the opening scene on the way to the coffee shop and back.
Yeah. Okay. So
Please.
If we can talk about
are we jumping
that
into
one.
favorite scenes? Because
we can do that. We can talk about something else. I'm just saying that at some point I definitely want to talk about this.
Let's talk about the intro scene, because I have a quote that appears in a later segment of the thing that I know will break out in discussion. But let's talk about the opening scene, because I feel that right there, it was just a masterpiece, and I think you guys might agree with me, but also some folks might not. What's up, Vince?
So my favorite scene is multiple scenes, and they tie in perfectly together. It's that the entire first part of the movie, from the kickoff of the car chase right at the beginning into the one-shot coffee scene, and then even further into the counting of the cash and everything going on, because everything from the beginning is just perfectly to the cue of that song. And then it goes into this amazing one shot where he's like dancing around. I think they said that they blocked off like 3 blocks in Atlanta to do this scene, and it's just like every step, every touch in the song plays out within the street. Like he's flipping around, he's dancing. There's the trumpet mural, and he pretends to do the trumpet at the trumpet part as he walks past that. And even like I noticed this time around, like the beats that the street performers are playing kind of goes perfectly along with the music that he's listening to. It's really cool.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I'm sure we'll go back to the beginning scene because there's so much in that with the car chase. But I mean, like you said, Vince, the first however many minutes it is of this movie is just masterful.
It's like 12 minutes, at least 10 minutes. I looked down at my thing at one point, at my phone, just thinking like, how far am I into this? And I am so into it. Like, how far into the movie am I? Yeah.
Also think about how few words were in those opening scenes too. Like,
I don't think
tons of nonverbal. There was the first time you hear anyone say a word is when he walks into the coffee shop, and
I think that's
silent afterwards.
I think that's exactly it. And I mean, that's
and the first full-on conversation is Kevin Spacey
exactly
talking to Baby when he comes back with the coffee, which, like I said, is like 10 or 15 minutes into the movie.
So you're 10 minutes into this movie. Like, the only real words are spoken by someone at a coffee shop, nothing really big. But you were already introduced to literally every single major piece of this movie besides maybe his dad, his foster dad. Like, that's, I think, the only, like, major plot point that you can't, because I didn't even notice it when I watched it the first or the second time, but just in one of the videos I watch, you even meet Lily, what's her name, Deborah? She walks like by the coffee shop, and I didn't even see that. And there's so many things, because stuff changes, and you see the lyrics to the song are on the street in graffiti as he walks around.
That's cool.
Like, if you watch it, almost every single frame, there's the words that are happening in the song are on the street in graffiti and in different places. Just a couple more things I love about that scene. When he walks into the coffee shop, there's a mural outside, and it has some words from the song in it. And there's a heart in it, and the heart is black. Okay, and he orders the coffee, and then when he leaves after he's seen Deborah, the heart is red. And it's like he's like open his heart up, and he's like something like, oh, like I see what's going on here. So that's something I only noticed the second time. And his life is so perfectly in time, and you see it so much throughout the movie that it's so in sync, not just from the movie standpoint, from his standpoint, because of how much the movie is his life. He walks to the coffee shop, and he gets to the coffee shop, and when the guy asks him what he wants, he knows exactly what he wants, but he pauses and waits so he can say, yeah,
right,
just with the music.
It's so
amazing.
Well, and all of that kind of builds up to what my expectations were of the movie early on in that, because I love how it just started out on such a good note. Like, you see the bank robbery scene, it doesn't hide it from you what's going on, right? And then Baby, like, essentially looks like he's, I don't even call it, like, he's just into the job, he's, stone faced or whatever. And then as soon as those guys jump out of the car, he's like being his young self again, free, dancing. I danced right there, guys. So but he's just doing his thing, and then he gets out, and whoever's character points forward, Jamie Foxx's character points forward, and he just slams it in reverse, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
that's such a good touch.
It's not Jamie Foxx, right? Because he's not in it
No,
yet.
it's John Berthold.
Oh, yeah. John Berthold, the Punisher. That's who that is. Sorry, guys, the Punisher.
That part is so great.
Wasn't that good, though? Because your expectation is he's just going to tear off up through the street,
Yeah.
And same with the character himself. He thinks that's exactly what's going to happen. And Baby Driver's like, nope, I got this. And flips in reverse and just takes off backwards.
And the thing is that you expect that, even though the movie is so fast-paced and so perfectly timed, that you expect that, but you've been given actually 2 hints before that he's going to go in reverse. Number 1, a cop car flies straight past them, so it's in front of the car. And number 2, even though it's really quick, he also slams the car right into reverse, literally the shot before John Bernthal points forward, and then backwards.
Takes off.
Bingo. Yeah, and it just goes well from there. I'm so happy we're talking about this movie. I could probably talk for like 2 hours about this. But once we get into, the crime part of it, where they're in their building, they're planning, they're going about doing things, right? We get really introduced to Kevin Spacey's character, what he does, and kind of...
Who he plays Doc in the movie is his name. He kind of is the guy who runs the whole operation. He's the head of the gang, if you will.
He's the
who
mind,
kind
the
of
brains,
he's the
right?
brains behind it all, who kind of puts the gang the group together and then sends them out on their heists. He's the guy who knows people.
So when the tequila scene comes about, right? And you find out that he has these connections because finally Jamie Foxx for real this time, once we get into where his character is a main component of it, he like says, "Hey, I know you. You're a cop, don't I know you?" And he'd be like, "Well, if you knew me, you'd be dead," type thing. And so what's really interesting is you find out, and this is going back to Doc's character, essentially not like jumping this far forward, right? But Doc's character is so interlinked in both the police, like in the government and how it works, that he's not only paying these folks to commit the crime, but he's paying off the police to make sure that he can commit the crime successfully and his people can get away. And like he mentions, he has somebody planning on burning a truck at one point and doing all this kind of stuff to cause these distractions. So really well, planned out guy, or really a guy who can really well plan out his vision. And I like that a lot about Doc's character.
Yeah, he surprised me how much I ended up liking him, Doc. Because he just seems like he's going to be this bad guy like kind of the rest of them. But in the end, I guess we can talk about that a little bit later, but in the end he kind of redeems himself in a way, or because throughout the movie he's like threatening Baby through the whole thing.
Yeah.
That's what makes you hate him almost,
Yeah.
right? As you're at the beginning of the movie, and it does surprise you how much you end up, sort of being okay with him because, I think now that we look back at it and see what he does at like through the end of the movie, I don't think that he ever really had intentions of hurting Baby.
No,
like
me
he just
neither.
needed him,
Yeah,
Like,
I think he just saw how useful he was
And
and
he knew
didn't
that-
want to lose him.
and he knew that threatening could get him, get him Baby.
Uh-huh.
Baby would do what he want if he threatened him because he's been doing it basically his whole life since he's 13 or so is what they mentioned, right?
Yeah, Baby's been stealing cars since he was like 13 or 12 years old. So a really young man. Just he's been grooming essentially. He's like, after I found him, right, I like knew I had to have him, and so that's where we really find out about it. Moving a little bit farther into the movie now, not just like the first couple of scenes. I want to go into, I believe it's the second heist that we experience, which has Jamie Foxx's character finally showing up. You have Flea's character, which is like no nose, right? It's kind of like his character.
Yes.
And then, crap.
What did he call him? Like Eddie the Nose, and then
Well, no, they had that,
Eddie,
and then
Eddie
like
No
JD,
Nose.
right?
Yeah,
is the last
JD,
one.
who put the Asian in Home Invasion.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's when they introduced Bats,
Yeah.
who is Jamie Foxx's character too.
Exactly. That heist is probably one of the, like, it's a great scene of action, but also I thought it was kind of a good comedy scene, right? So you show up, and the whole time, like, Jamie Foxx's character is kind of like, he's like a very critical person, and he's like very like, he wants things to go right because he wants to go home, essentially. He wants to spend his money that he's making. And one thing that I think is super funny is, right, they're supposed to get the Michael Myers mask from Halloween. And JD just goes and picks all three of them up, and I found out, and they end up wearing, the International Man of Mystery mask the whole time.
They got the Austin Powers Mike Myers mask.
Yeah. And here's kind of a funny fact I found out about it, but the Mike Myers masks were actually supposed to be the mask of Michael Myers from Halloween, kind of like I said, but the producers were unable to obtain legal permission.
Oh, really?
Edgar Wright then reached out to the comedian Mike Myers about the mask of his likeness instead, who thought the scene was funny and gave his permission. So even though, like,
great.
in the scene and in that moment, you're like, JD is a freaking idiot, man. But we find out that afterwards that was a really thought out decision because they couldn't obtain the rights for it, but that makes it even funnier.
And it's also perfect for the story because, he ends up killing JD, right? Because he was slipping up the whole time, leaves his shotgun behind. There's no strap on his shotgun, which is probably why he left it behind. And so it's just one more thing that, showed that he was, sort of a liability to Doc. Yeah. And so he...
And this is the scene where you kind of see Baby's world start to kind of unravel, because it's the first time when the movie kind of goes offbeat with the song, and he actually has to stop and be like, hold up, I gotta rewind this, I gotta replay this. Yeah. He rewinds the thing just so he can get back on beat again, and then everything kind of starts to go off track for him from here on out in the movie.
So that as well, because he does that, he has to rewind because, they don't plan super well, because this is more of a sloppy crew than there was before. But also, Baby's in this because even though he doesn't like it because it's crime, it'll get him free of his debt to this guy. But he's also in it because it's a way that he is not hurting that many people. Like, he can do it, but it's not that bad. And so it also throws him off that even though the song is playing, when he rolls up to go back, and because he goes forward, and he doesn't see it. Exactly. He comes back, but then when he comes back, he actually sees like the dead guy, right? And he like is shooken up for a second. And you see this throughout the movie, and it's almost what redeems him, in the end, is his, his affection that he shows towards people, that even while he's doing this, that he doesn't want people to really get hurt. Right. And it happens throughout the entire movie. And this is, one of those times where he gets shaken up by someone actually getting killed. And while it doesn't throw him off because he's so focused in, it does just give him a little hiccup,
Kind of that eye-opening moment. And this brings me to my one nitpick in the whole movie. So they're at the bank. You see the soldier walk across the parking lot, get in his truck. The soldier sees all this stuff going down, starts chasing him, pulls out his handgun, shoots him from across the lot, and then throws a newspaper off the passenger seat. And for some reason, he's got a fully automatic... I don't know what that gun is, but it's all loaded up and it's ready to go. Like, does this guy really does he really just drive around in his truck with this fully automatic gun just sitting there ready to go?
America.
It was a little too convenient for me, where I was just like, this is great, but I don't know about that.
I will refrain from making any political statements here. That's really... I thought that was really off too, and I kind of made some jokes about it when we were watching the movie. I was like, only in America, right?
Yeah.
But that's really, I agree with you. Like, that's as far as
it made for a great scene. I loved it, but I was just like, I don't know about that one.
Yeah, that's true.
I did love Baby driving the car around the half pipe at that point, though. It was like skateboarding all over again. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater Baby Edition.
Exactly. Yeah, so I think it sort of had to happen for like the sake of this scene, but I do agree that it could be a little bit out of place there, and where it's just
and then it goes into this awesome chase scene that you're just like fully invested in through the whole thing.
Yeah, well, and it also, I guess, like, here's one thing that I will say about that: it does show the citizenship of, like, the good Samaritanship, I guess, of the American people, right? If you can, you will try to help.
I would have bought just the pistol,
yes,
but the fact that he had that, like, that's not a gun that a regular person has. Like, we're from small
like
town.
ex-Marine, though.
I know, but. Like,
I think if anyone
I have
would
a lot
Marine current criminal. I don't know. I shouldn't say that.
I have a lot of friends who are in the military. I grew up in small town Utah where everyone has like guns, I don't know anyone that has that type of gun sitting around their house, let alone in their car.
That makes two of us. Vince and I grew up in the same region of Utah, and I've never seen a gun like that, just anyone's car, but I've seen a lot of guns in people's cars.
I've seen like kind of like M16s and that kind of stuff, but that was, I just should have looked up the type of gun, but I looked at that and I was just like, he very much went out of his way to find that specific type and was just waiting for the opportunity to use that gun.
Yeah. I don't know. That's a good call out, though, because I remember thinking like that was a really weird moment. But then, like, as we're talking going into the car chase, right, which is one of the best. I love the car chases in these movies.
Oh, they're better than any Fast and the Furious I've seen.
Amen.
Like it feels realistic, but it's so over the top at the same time. Whereas like with the Fast and the Furious movie, it either feels like fake because it's so over the top. Like they do things where it's like, well, they're dead. In this, everything that they did in this movie, is set up, but they actually perform it. Like I said earlier, 95% of this movie was actually done, including that scene at the beginning where they're driving through the alley and he does that half 180 turn and half 180 back out.
Yeah,
that they actually did that stunt
through like the grease and stuff. Oh
yeah, it's so cool. Like, props to the stunt drivers because they got skills for this movie.
Madmen indeed. But here's a thought going back to like Baby's attire, Baby's behavior, the feelings of remorse and all of that, right? So this is the first time where we see them jump out and leave a vehicle. I think that's the only time this happens. And they go steal another person on the street's vehicle. Oh, no, sorry, it happens twice. Mm-hmm. But he goes up there, and then Jamie Foxx's character, I keep forgetting his name, I'm so sorry. Bats. He is like, leave the baby in there, right? Mm-hmm. Like they get the woman out of the car. She's like, I got a kid in there. And Bats is like, I got a kid too, And then here comes Baby grabbing the child, handing out. And I don't think at this point he says sorry or like really shows essentially large scale remorse for it, but it shows that he has, he knows that his part is vital, but he doesn't want to hurt very many people to achieve his task.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, because it's not this part. I mean, I could be wrong, but he doesn't like say anything. But while they're literally like, running and jumping into this car, like he's the driver, he takes time to get this baby out of the car seat in the back and hand it to the mother before he speeds off. So,
and this is something you see throughout the movie is him doing these nice things to the people that he has to wrong. I mean, like with that soldier we were just talking about, Bats has a shot where he could have killed him. He could have shot him through the window into the other car, and Baby bumps him with his shoulder to throw off his aim or whatever.
Yeah.
And then there's that part where he hands the baby back, and then he has to carjack the little old lady later in the movie, and he apologizes to her and gives her a purse before he drives away. Like, you start to see this consistent good person, personality traits coming out in Baby.
yeah. So while Baby is a badass, he's still doing the right thing, which is sort of why, this is why he's the main character of the movie and why we sympathize with him so much, and why, even though he does end up killing 2 people, we're like, it's all good.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's all right. 25 years after 5 years parole, like, that sounds about right. We're like, that sounds okay.
Yeah, that's justified. You should probably be there.
Well, and kind of like looking at what he does on the streets, right? And kind of his behavior out while doing and paying off his debt to Doc, we see what he's doing at home with, his stepfather and the way that he treats him, takes care of him, kind of their unique relationship, because it's a nonverbal scenes the whole time, right? So essentially they're communicating via sign language, and they have this kind of witty banter that's going back and forth between the two of them, because his stepfather's reminding him, like, hey, like, you should work a real job, something where you don't have to wash your hands twice of, the money that you touch and you get, which I thought is really funny. And then you see Baby as he like starts to fall more in love, and he starts to kind of gain more interest in changing his way. The home relationship kind of changes off of the advice of his stepfather.
So we have his relationship with, I'm pretty sure it's his foster dad, right?
Oh,
that's
right, foster dad.
Yeah.
Sorry,
No, it's
not
all good.
stepfather.
Just want to make sure that I'm on the right page. Otherwise, I missed a huge plot point.
Sorry about the coughs, guys.
So you have his relationship there, and then I also just love.
We haven't talked about the relationship between him and Deborah either.
Oh, his love interests.
Shall we dive in?
Because so Deborah is working at the cafe that his mom used to work at before she died. By the way, Baby's mom died. We also didn't cover that.
Rip. Sorry.
So Baby's mom died in a car accident that he was in the car. Both of his parents died.
Yeah, he was orphaned at
But his mother was a musician, and that's where he got his love for music. And so he's been going back to this diner for years and years and years, where his mom used to work, and ends up meeting Deborah there, who is the new waitress at the diner. And she's great.
And she's way great. No, I think what's really interesting looking, and I say that a lot, I think that's really interesting, or it's really interesting to me. But what is cool about their relationship and kind of how it starts is it's a very kind of playful, flirtatious way, because she walks in the restaurant, right, singing a song, and she walks by and she says, like, I can't remember the exact tone, but essentially baby, baby, baby. Yeah. Not like Justin Bieber song, but essentially more of a classic.
It's the B-A-B-Y baby, B-A-B-Y baby.
Yes, that one. That's the one.
Which I listened to that song on my way over here tonight, so they sing it much better in the song than I just did.
I'm going to put this out as Vince Bradley's first single.
Yeah,
just like a 3-second single for Vince.
Before you know it, I'm going to be rich.
But like he records her singing that song, which is actually really interesting and kind of goes into another big part of this film. That Baby's been recording a lot of his interactions with folks, and he steals communication and lines directly from other people and uses them in his relationship with his girl, but also uses them in his conversations with his boss, Doc, and other people he's interacting with. He steals lines the whole time. But going back to kind of this relationship thing, is they start out with just kind of a very flirtatious thing, and their first date is to probably one of the best shot scenes, in my opinion, of the whole movie, which they go to the laundromat, a place that I've never seen such well-divided laundry before, because usually when you go to a laundromat, everything is gray, and you see the occasional color going in there. But, it's a really cool scene, and I think that the music and the whole moment goes very well together.
Doesn't it look so good, though? Isn't that, so, appealing to your brain? Like, one of those, satisfying moments?
So
you see the primary colors in the
it's
in the
so
dryers
cool.
and everything behind. Just
So another fun little, movie tidbit. They couldn't get those washing machines to all go at the same time. So between every scene, they had to have people run back and drop quarters in the machine and restart them over again so they'd all be going.
Really?
Yeah, I thought it was kind of funny.
That is really funny. I love kind of the back end. We need to do an episode more just on the back end of how movies are made. Just a random thought for a future, but I'd love that. All right. And yeah, with the relationship, does anyone else have any specific call-outs they want to do?
I think with that scene in the laundromat, that's really where you get most of their development as a couple. I guess there's another one where they go out to dinner in a restaurant, but there isn't a lot of time spent on developing their relationship, which I don't think is a bad thing. I don't think it was really needed. It kind of felt like an older style movie, where she's this works in this 1950s style diner, and this relationship is just kind of this what we imagine it to be. We don't actually see kind of the development of it. It just kind of kicks in, but it didn't really feel stale to me. It felt real.
I just love how we talked about the development of their relationship with him and Deborah and how he does that with, the different quotes. I just loved that aspect of the movie. Not to move too far away from his and Deborah's relationship, but just how he's a mixer is what you could call it.
Yeah.
So he, takes lines that he records and he makes these songs, these little audio tracks, but he also just takes lines both from TV and his conversations with real people, and he inserts it into conversations with other people. When John Hamm's character is it's the finest whining and dining and all that stuff, and then he says that exact same thing to Deborah, right?
Yeah.
When literally every single quote from when he's flipping through the channels is inserted in the movie, from Monsters Inc., from Little Rascals, from there's not a line, but
I didn't catch that Little Rascal one.
So the Little Rascals one, and then
He
I don't
says,
remember.
"You are so beautiful" to her, right?
Yeah, exactly. In the diner.
I missed that.
And there's two other specific quotes that are also thrown in throughout
One
the
from
movie.
Fight Club.
Yes, exactly.
I don't remember the other one. The Fight Club one just stood out because I enjoy Fight Club.
And then just the fact that he does that, and every single one of those lines put throughout the movie is incredible attention to detail, and something that I had no clue. Even watching the second time, it was only after I saw a video about it that I was like, oh my gosh, every single moment in this movie is important and relates to something else, and it's perfect. And so just that he's a mixer, and that's the lifestyle he leads, it's so interesting to look at that, as well as how music fits into that. Is that music is so important to his life, and it's the way that he not necessarily escapes, but it's the way that he associates with the real world, and it's his whole life is based around music and the role that it plays with him ever since his childhood.
So I just want to talk two more scenes I absolutely loved, and then we can kind of get to the end of the movie, right?
Yes.
The tequila scene, I mean, that's how I'm going to refer to it, as the tequila scene. That shout out set to the tequila song was such a nice touch. Shows Bats is absolutely a crazy person, and it kind of set it up for me, the expectation that Bats was going to end up being the big bad at the end of the movie, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So I was surprised after all that Bats gets killed off so quickly in my second favorite scene of the movie, which is the heist gone wrong, running away from the cops. John Hamm and his girlfriend, Darling, what is it, Buddy and Darling, getting it, their shootout, and them how they keep on running into Baby, and then Baby, he's referred to it by Doc as Doc's lucky charm, and then at one point he backs into Darling and Buddy, and they turn around, they're like, "You're a jinx, baby, this is all your fault," you know. But that entire sequence is it's right up there with the beginning. I wasn't sure if they could, after this, the third viewing, I wasn't sure if they could top that first part of the movie, but I think I think that whole scene running through the mall, away from the cops, the shootout going on, it's just as good as the beginning.
And I think that, like Vince mentioned before, it's something that you see the very first time. And even though it's something you see the very first time and not after repeat viewings, it's because it's so incredible and intricate that it's impossible not to notice. The tequila scenes, I mean, it's so hard to pick favorite scenes with this movie because it's all so good. The tequila scene is just incredible with its attention to detail, with the gunshots and everything. And obviously you notice that, but I don't think my bewilderment goes away anytime that I watch that scene and I hear the exactness. I mean, the exact length and the volume and the tone of the gunshots matches the song perfectly.
And then just like the period on the whole scene is Jamie Foxx, Tequila. So perfect.
Well, and something that kind of goes in with this, I think we might have mentioned this earlier, but every time they shoot a gun in that scene, it goes with it. And you might have said this a little bit, but that's really fascinating. The moves of, like, there's a scene where Baby is like on the ground and there's a guy standing above him, like shooting a shot at him, right? I think he shoots 3 times at him. And then it comes up where Bats just shoots the guy 2 times. And it like matches the music perfectly. And the music perfectly. And then when he falls also matches. And it's kind of an interesting thing.
The big things as well as the subtle things. I mean, like, it's not, I was about to say that it's like beating a dead horse. It's not, because of how good it is, the attention to detail, because it's the smallest things, from falling into ground to a shot change, you know, like a cut going to another shot, as well as even when the actors like look somewhere, like they'll look somewhere, it's with the beat of the music. They'll close a car door, it's with the beat of the music. And so it's just ridiculous. You can look at almost every single aspect when they're doing this with the music in the background that's matching up. Like nothing in the scene is out of place or not planned.
Yeah, and I think it sounds like the consensus of all of us is that this was a movie that, like, we're gonna be watching again because it was so well made. And Vince, you brought up like your one nitpick, right? You don't have anything else to kind of go into that.
No, that's my only one.
Okay.
Nothing really stood out to me so much that it took me out of the movie, except for that one thing.
Okay. And Josh, do you have any nitpicks?
Not especially, just because I was so enthralled with the movie that I almost forgot to look for anything, because I'm sure there'd be small things, but I was in love with it the entire time. I did want to ask you guys really quick if you had any favorite, like, one-liner quotes from the movies, because that's something also that's, you know, a below-the-radar really good thing about the movie.
So there's the scene in the diner where Deborah's working and Baby goes in with Bat's buddy and Darling, and Bat says something that he's making fun of Buddy's backstory, kind of telling him who he thinks he is, and Darling reaches over and is like, "I got this. I'm gonna go ahead and speak for both of us." And she goes into this like really intense like monologue about how if you get on the wrong side of my buddy, you're just gonna, you know, he's gonna see red and you're gonna see black or something like that. I don't remember exactly what he says, which is done so well. Like, I was so into it. And then the moment when when Bats just starts clapping, he's like, "That's great. That's Oscar stuff right there. You practiced that, you know?" And it just like movies don't normally do that, you know. Movies usually give you those monologues and let you sit on it, and Bats just is like, "No, I'm going to take that away from you."
That was improvised,
silly,
by the way. That was an improvised
was
scene. Yeah, he improvised that.
Well, that entire scene is another one of my favorite scenes. One of those like small moments.
And that entire scene is amazing, as well as, you know, how it comes back later with the whole, like, if you get him mad that you're going to be seeing red. The whole time that he's in the cop car in the final part, right, when he's chasing Ansel Elgort, you got that red light that's shining right on him, right? Which, even though that's not, you know, his character's color per se, it's just like the light shining on him to relate with that quote. But anyway, Casey, did you have any favorite one-liners from the movie?
I didn't necessarily have any favorite one-liners. I just really enjoyed the communication between the foster father and Baby the whole time. And I think that it was because it was all so witty. It was never like just, you know, there was no, I think throughout this whole film, though, there was nothing that was just like crap to filler, right? But it was everything was witty, and especially I think if I think about my favorite in those scenes, it was like, I can't hear you because I got a banana in my ear, which goes back to like doxing. Like, I have a code word, bananas, that everyone says when a deal's finished, and I didn't hear bananas tonight, and it was kind of like referring, I felt,
And
to
then
that.
Darling again later when they all find out that Baby has been recording the conversations and making music out of it, she sits back and just calls it bananas. She's like, now that is bananas. Like, it always comes back to that.
Oh,
Exactly.
I
What
had
about you, Josh?
I had a couple one-liners that I liked, even though they're sort of like cheesy and stuff. I just felt like they were like thrown in so good. And just to give the audience a quick chuckle, one of them was, I need 4 sets of eyes and 3 sets of ears.
Yeah, that's good.
Because you just
'Cause he
know
always-
that Baby's tuned in and he's like reading lips, right?
Uh-huh.
Like the whole time, which is just so smart. As well as, I don't squeal to the police. I squeal on the streets.
Yeah. Could have been such a corny line, but delivered so well.
Dude, he nails it.
No, that. Oh, I wish I actually had like a copy of the script in front of me so I could be like highlighting some of the good ones, because it's in like an endless stream of good lines where you know that had they not been performed in the way that they were, like whether it's lined up with the music or whatever, right, they wouldn't have made sense or something like that. And I think the folks who acted in this did really well.
So who stands out to you guys? Who's your favorite actor? Who's your favorite performance, I guess, in the movie?
My favorite single performance has to be Ansel Elgort. I mean, he just completely delivers. From the beginning, you know that he's the main part of the movie, and he has his personality from, he starts, the music is playing, and you're ready for this big getaway scene, which is coming. But it's so interesting and enthralling that the very, very first shots of the movie, they go into the bank, but then after that, you're sort of waiting for them to come out and this chase to start, because that's a good action-packed way to start a movie. But it's not. It's him in the car singing, being his teenage self like we talked about, and just how everything is so intricate. And he just shows who he really is before we even get underway. And then him throughout the movie, I almost thought, like the first time I watched it, that he was just going to be like, like mute. He couldn't say anything, that music really was just his life because, he couldn't like speak. And so music would be the way he communicated and everything. So he'd be my favorite single actor. I think my favorite like almost performance or thing as far as acting went was the chemistry between Ansel Elgort and what's her name, Lily James. That's my like best of show, their chemistry, because like Casey talked about it, like so flirtatious and how it went along. I mean, when we watched it, my wife was sort of like, yo, like she barely knows this guy. And while it's true they've only known each other for so long, it was because they just hit it off so fast that you knew that she was in it for the long haul and that she was going to be with him forever because of their performance, because of their chemistry. You knew that they were something to not be forgotten. And so that was my best of show, was the two actors performing together.
So I 100% agree. They're great together. Ansel, I was really impressed with his dancing, and like his physical performance was really, really impressive. But I have to give this one, I just have to shout out everybody in the movie. John Hamm, absolutely great, especially in the end when he sees Red and he's hunting him down. That scene in the cafe when the tension builds and he has his Baby come over and sit next to him and tells him, there has to be consequences for what you've done. You killed my one true love, But I'm gonna give and Darling, I love Darling too. Like I said, I loved her monologue. But I'm gonna give my best of show to Jamie Foxx as Bats. Every time he was on screen, I could not take my eyes off him. He was so menacing and crazy, and you never knew what he was gonna do next. And I don't know, he just whenever he was there, you couldn't help but like pay attention to what he was going to do next. He just kind of stole it all from me.
Yeah, he had such a screen presence in this. Like, he came in, I hated his character, and so that's why I was like, that's why I forgot him at the first. I guess like I just
That's
put
how
it
you
on
know
my-
they're so good, though. If you hate
him.
a character, that's how much you know, like that they've done they did their part.
Yeah,
Yep.
he did his part, and he carries that presence with him in most things he does. And so it's not like I'm like, oh, Jamie Foxx. He did great, and I agree with you there. Like, his performance was outstanding. Can I be really honest with you? Similar to something you said earlier, I thought that he would be the big bad guy at the end.
Yeah.
And it really surprised me. Like, I'm a huge John Hamm fan, but I never see him as a bad guy. And it's not that he can't play it. It's just he never usually seems to carry that, I don't know if you want to call it countenance or that strike of evil with him, right? And so I was very surprised at that, but I enjoyed John Hamm's performance a lot in this, and I have to give him a shout out because I love John Hamm. Like he's just my favorite. And everyone's gonna think I have this crazy man crush on John Hamm now, but
we know you do.
I'll admit it, John Hamm
It's
every
right.
day. But
Just lean into it.
But really,
we don't blame you.
I know that Kevin Spacey is kind of a hot topic right now because he has so many problems with his personal life. But I loved him as Doc in this film. And I think he always executes well in his performances, but he fit the bill for what I would expect. And this might be a little judgmental, or I might have a weird image of crime, but he kind of matched my thoughts on what a crime mastermind would look like. He just looks like your average, everyday, wealthy man. He wasn't like overly dressed up and overdone, but he's what I imagine an overly rich person who's a criminal looks like. And he played the part well. And even his nephew, like, think about it. He's been like grooming his nephew to like take over the family business, and he's 8. So I loved it.
I think he fits the bill perfectly. Sorry not to cut you off, Vince, because I think, like just like Casey said, he is like the person who would be running something like this. Because so many times people try and they fail to like get like the perfect like crime lord, because you have to have someone who looks normal enough, who would be like a wealthy businessman, but then undercover they can run this operation, because people do it and they either get someone who's like too dopey or like too serious. Like, I mean, I love the guy, but like what's his face, Ed Helms and We're the Millers, like I never ever see that guy as like a guy who runs like a billion-dollar operation for selling weed, like never. So I think, like Casey said, they hit it out of the park with the casting on that one.
Oh yeah, the entire cast in this was just so perfect. John Hamm was actually the only actor written for this movie. Like, he wrote that character for John Hamm. Edgar Wright did. Yeah. He said that he met him on set of Saturday Night Live and told him, I have a movie that I want you to star in. And so when he wrote the movie, he knew he was going to have him as buddy.
He was also
kind of a fun fact.
Only character from the original table reading who remained the same. Everyone else was recast, which I think is interesting as well.
So I'm going to pitch one more idea for you guys.
Okay.
Baby's in jail for 5 to 25 years. Let's say he gets out in 5 years, 10 years tops, What if they do a sequel to Baby Driver where Doc's nephew wants revenge on Baby? Would you be in for that? See, this is why I bring it up, because I finished the movie and I was like, I want more of this, but I don't think I want a sequel to Baby Driver. And I was like, how could they do a sequel to this movie? If they're gonna go with Baby again, what would bring him back into the underworld? And that's the only thing I could think of. What if Doc's nephew comes up?
I'd be into the idea, because you mentioned that, and that's super interesting, and you might want to throw something on that, because someone's going to come and steal that. They're going to make big money off of it. I'm into the idea of it. I don't know if it could be as well executed or as well thought out. I mean, like, I'm sure if Edgar Wright decided to do it, it would be, amazingly executed to the best of its ability. I think the scenario described is the only way that I would
as ridiculous
consider.
As it sounds.
As ridiculous as it sounds, it'd be super interesting, and also something that I'm surprised that we hadn't touched on until now. That Casey mentioned, him just grooming his nephew to be the new master of this entire organization. I mean, if it came out, I would be wary, but I would definitely see it.
I'm not a fan of the idea, and I'm just gonna lay that out there just like that. Not a fan. I think for the novelty of the idea, yeah, sure, it would be kind of, because the grooming, and that kid was just on spot. He just knew everything about it.
He was good,
and he executed well, and he kept a straight face, and then he even like helped the guy, like Baby outright. He's like, 4. There were 4. Like, was it 4 employees? I can't remember. Yeah, 4 employees. But I'm going to say no. I don't want another one. I don't want anything else of this sort. I just want it one and done, because it was so well executed. And that's really where I stand with it. Like, what do you think, Vince? Would you be down with it?
No, I don't want him to do a sequel to this movie. I want him to do... I would love to have something similar to it, but this story was just so perfectly told. I don't really need anything else, anything more. Final thoughts?
Final thoughts. Thank you. I was like trying to scroll back to where my phone was, but I'm gonna go through and edit all this out.
There you
But
go.
final thoughts, guys. What do you think? Let's go with Vince. What do you think? What are your final thoughts?
This is a movie that I will go back to over and over and over again. It's something that I can sit down, turn off the lights, and watch. And it's also a movie that I continually will put on in the background while I do something on my computer or cook a meal or something, because the soundtrack is just that good. You know, just being able to listen to the soundtrack and peek over at what's going on every once in a while. It's so well done. I honestly think it's my favorite Edgar Wright movie, and that's saying something because Scott Pilgrim versus the World is incredible. It's a movie that I like to say was made for me because I grew up super fan of video games and involved in that kind of pop culture world, and I didn't think he'd be able to make a movie that would top that for me. But Baby Driver is, in my opinion, peak Edgar Wright. And I hope that he can top himself, but it's going to be hard.
I definitely agree with Vince as far as Edgar Wright's films, because Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, Shaun of the Dead, love them very much.
Hot Fuzz.
Just everything.
They're all great.
They are all great. And if you don't know who Edgar Wright is, please go and check him out, because we promise that you will not be disappointed. I mean,
I just want to say something about him. He looks like a different version of Keanu Reeves. Sorry, you can keep going, Josh, like on what you're saying, but I just wanted to throw that in there.
No, yeah, Casey threw that out, and I looked at it, and I'm like, it's true. The whole, internet sensation of Keanu Reeves right now, if that's what it takes to get you to go look up to see who he is, please do it, because you will not be disappointed. Amazing movie. I mean, one that I had watched once before. Maybe not in the exact right environment for what it was going to be, because, I heard it was good. But when I first watched it, I was at my in-laws' house, and we had people talking, like playing games and stuff. And so I watched it, and it was good, but I wasn't as focused as I could have been this second time, because this was only the second time I watched it. And so I see so many more details, and it's a movie you can go back, watch over and over and over again, and talk about with people, and just love and learn more aspects of it every time. I'll also come back to it so many times. 100% recommend it. I mean, love it so much.
I too will also watch it forever, because John Hamm is a bad guy, right? I wasn't sure about it, but like I said, I'm crushing hard right now on John Hamm this whole podcast. I feel a little weird, but no, it's all good. But no, I will come back and watch it. Similar to the other call outs of our members here, like, the music is great. The cinematography is great. And I feel you can show up at any point in this film, like after you've seen it once, and know what's going on. It's not because it's a predictable film, but it's because it's so well told. And yeah, that's really where I sit with it. Any other final thoughts on this before we kind of go out of here?
I think we're all good.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, guys, thank you so much for tuning in with us. Our next week's film.
Yes.
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man.
Next week.
Spider-Man.
Sorry, I already did my singing for the podcast earlier.
I was really hoping you would do like, does whatever a spider can.
I ruined the bit.
No, it's all good. So we're going to do Spider-Man 2, which is Far From Home, correct?
Yep.
And we're actually going to change up the day that our podcast is released, just because we're going to go see it.
We'll only be one day late. So for all you, 7 followers we have or whatever.
Listen, those 7 people are dedicated fans. We know who you are.
And we really appreciate you, and thank you.
Yeah, that's true. So we're going to go. It comes out on Tuesday, and we were hoping to see it, it comes out Tuesday, see it Monday night, and then record it just after, and then still put it out Tuesday like normal. But it's actually doing like a midnight release, which is something we haven't really seen for a while. And so it comes out like Tuesday at midnight, so Monday night, Tuesday morning. And so we're going to check it out on Tuesday, and then do one that night and get it all edited and up for you guys on Wednesday. So be looking for that, and be looking for some more bonus features as well coming out to tide you over until that comes out.
Also, just real quick, if you want to prep a little bit and you have not listened to our Spider-Man Homecoming episode yet, we did do a full hour discussion on Spider-Man Homecoming. So if you need something to hold you over until then, jump back and listen to that.
And brush you up so you're ready for Far From Home as well.
Yes.
Now you can wrap it
up. Now I can wrap it up. Perfect. Yeah, so thank you so much for tuning into the Pause, Rewind, Play podcast. Josh, where can we find you, follow you, and know what you're watching and up to?
So you can find me on Twitter at ShortYoshi127. I've been posting a lot. I mean, this last week was amazing. I watched Her and Zombieland and Baby Driver, so I've been posting a lot of good stuff. Check me out there. It's been a good time.
I skipped the what we're watching part. I'm sorry.
Oh no,
But
I just
think
wanted
this
to
is
let
a
everyone
good
know.
end, actually, the way to do it and say, hey, this is what
There
I'm
you go.
watching. But what about you, Vince? Where can we find you, follow you, double tap things that you post?
Yeah, I am inactive on Twitter at Vince Bradley. And
Remember your big promises in our earlier episodes about that? Like, I will hopefully be posting. You know, you're just like, I'm inactive here. Don't find me there.
yeah, I might start getting active again eventually. But I am also running the Pause Play Rewind podcast on Instagram, and so you can find stuff that I'm posting over there until I figure out how to do this Twitter thing.
Perfect.
That I say that every episode, that eventually I'm going to figure out this new thing, Twitter.
Listen, Twitter is like one of the most classic online social media
I
sites.
know, and I just never learned it. I'm just not very good at sharing my thoughts. I like to see other people's thoughts. I'm just not. I don't know.
So you're one of those people who like
I lurk.
heart and retweet everyone's stuff? Because I do that all
Well,
the
that's
time.
what it turned into, just me retweeting other people's stuff, and I was like, well, what am I doing here? I do post some of my like thoughts on movies on the Letterboxd app, if you've heard of that. So maybe I'll just start taking some of those like 2-paragraph reviews and posting them on Twitter or something like that.
That'd be perfect. And you can find me, Casey, online on Twitter at I am Casey Lee, or on Instagram at Casey Yardley. Mostly I tweet about movies and retweet TV series. So thank you so much for tuning in, Podcast World, and we'll see you again next week.